The film Ellis was made by a man named Jean Rene in 2015. Rene was born in Paris, France in 1983. He started his career by interviewing people who used walls and facades to express themselves artistically. He then pasted these people's portraits all over Paris, on streets, underground, and even rooftops. The pasting of the portraits around Paris was a precursor to his project in the United States, which was called the Unframed Project. According to JR, the Unframed Project contained pictures of immigrants which were given to him by current immigrants or people in support of immigration. He says, and I quote, "We gathered all those thousands of photos and it really connected to the reality of today." His work on that project provided him with a great amount of experience with portraits, which he would use in one of his projects later on. In 2015, JR directed a short film while working in the abandoned hospital on Ellis Island. This short film, Ellis, critiques the government system of immigration by using existentialist and modernistic ideas. At the time of the film's creation, there were several notable things happening in the United States. One of these things was a substantial surge in immigration to America. During 2012 and 2013, there were 2.3 million immigrants entering the United States. Now compare that to the number of immigrants during 2014 and 2015. Over 3 million immigrants entered the United States. Fun fact, that's about the population of the state of Arkansas. But moving on. Rene said that the reason he made the movie was because, and I quote, "I, JR, want to find the story behind each person who left his or her country." JR also had family that went through Ellis Island, so this film was a way for him to connect with his roots. One point of the film is to call the American citizens' attention to the immigrants who attempted to come through Ellis Island. One article named "Artist's Hidden Message on Ellis Island" confirms that the director desired viewers to see that the people in his photos are, quote, "more than just history" when they visit JR's Ellis Island project. Another part of the message is that he is encouraging America to let the modern-day immigrants into the country. That was just a little background information about JR and why he made the film. Now to analyze the film itself. The film contains a single older man on screen. All is quiet as he walks into a broken-down hospital from the snowy outdoors. The elderly man then begins to relate his journey to freedom. He talks about the high hopes he had when he got off at Ellis Island. As he walks through the hospital, he recounts his experience of being turned away by the doctors. However, instead of allowing himself to be sent to his home country, he hides. He later meets a girl who is also hiding, but sadly, she dies without ever making it to America. This relates closely to the director's purpose behind the film, calling attention to the flaws in the immigration system, not just in the old days, but today as well. JR is critiquing the government system of immigration across all times because of its poor treatment of human beings. After speaking about his experience, he begins to reflect on the fact that some immigrants were granted freedom and experienced happiness. However, just as his speech begins to close, he reveals that he is the ghost of all the immigrants who never made it to freedom. After some looking into the projects, as well as some of JR's background, we can see that the main worldview of the film is existentialism, which is, and I quote, sees life as absurd, but also sees human beings as totally free to make their own meaning in the face of absurdity. It communicates this through the modernistic idea that human beings are autonomous and will save themselves, and intelligence and freedom guarantee full human potential. As the film begins, the character remembers his mother's desire for him to do wonderful things with his new life in America. He is encouraged to make his own way, to create a better life for himself, and freedom is shown as the best way to do that. Freedom is shown as so important and life-giving that it consumes the main character as he becomes the coast of all immigrants who never made it to America. He speaks of the doctors and other officials on Ellis Island as the ones who held people back from freedom and sent them away. They are portrayed in this film this way so that the audience feels less sympathetic for the doctors and officials. The ghost enviously speaks of the ones who made it to America. Going off that, in this film, we can see that when he talks about being trapped in the hospital on Ellis Island, everything is dark and almost indiscernible. But when he talks about the immigrants who made it to America, the setting becomes lighter and brighter. This elderly ghost is not only trapped in the Ellis Island hospital, but he is also trapped in despair over never getting freedom. I believe that as Christians, we should not agree with this worldview that is portrayed in the film. The worldview of existentialism is destructive because it focuses on the creature rather than the creator, God. This results in sad, tormented hopelessness as shown by the ghost in this film. He constantly has a beaten look on his face. He walks along dark and broken halls while sad, slow, and minimalistic music plays. Sadness is almost tangible rather than a feeling. Instead of living life in and of ourselves, we should argue that we must be focused on living by the power of a sovereign God. As it says in 1 John 2:15-17, and I quote, "Love not the world, neither the things that are in the world. If any man love the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, is not of the Father, but is of the world. And the world passeth away, and the lust thereof. But he that doeth the will of God abideth forever." We believe that we do not have to make our own rules and reasons for existing in this world. Instead, we can live for God because all the pleasure of the earth, even freedom, will pass away. Another passage that relates to this is Galatians 5:1, where it says, "Christ has liberated us to be free. Stand firm then, and do not submit again to the yoke of slavery." We are free in Christ, and because of this, we do not need to be self-centered and try to make sense of this world through our own misunderstanding. We do not have to be slaves trapped by our desires, good or bad. Unlike the elderly ghost who seemed trapped by Ellis Island Hospital because he was rejected freedom, we can live in Christ, in love because of Christ's work on the cross. While the modernistic idea on the high value of human beings is a good point, and the critique of government's treatment of immigrants may be valid, the existentialist worldview takes it too far and says that human beings must make their own rules out of the absurdity of life, while ignoring the freedom found in Christ despite how we are treated. Using existentialism and modernistic ideas, GR uses the short film Ellis to critique the government system of immigration.